Thank you, Craig. G'day, everyone. Hi. Who does want to be a CTO one day in your career path? Show me your hands. All right, it's not very useful talk then. 4 people want to be CTOs. Anyone want to rethink that? You may want to rethink afterwards. I don't know if it's going to be positive or negative. But I searched up CT. I thought to myself, CTO is not such a bad job. So I searched Google. Show me some bad jobs. You know, this guy came up. This guy came up. If he's getting paid, it's not a bad job. I mean, just, life after work ain't very good, but you know, it's a few people in this one. I believe this guy's called an entertainer. Anyone in the entertainment industry? No, and this is my fave. This could be you. Everyone else, everyone but the 4 who didn't put up their hand, this is your career path potentially, right? It's good, you know, with a good science background as well. You know, I like that. Here's my formula for life. This is my life formula, all right? You get a bit of education, you get a bit of a job, and that gives you some money and some happiness. Anyone want anything different? No, we're all in it for this, right? This is it. This is the pinnacle of what we all want to be in life. So Dave asked me to come in here and do this talk, and he asked me to talk specifically about what it's like to be a CTO. And that was a challenge for me. This came up a few weeks ago, and I'm like, okay, what is it like to be a CTO? And it really forced me to reflect on my whole journey and what it is and what CTOs do and why they do it. And I started asking some of my friends who are CTOs, you know, what's in it for you? And first things first, very complicated space, right? Different companies and different configurations and different products all lead to different organizational structures which have different definitions of a CTO. Right, so most of my career has been in Silicon Valley. I spent 12 years in the startup industry out in Silicon Valley, and now I've been 6 years at NYB. So I've worked for CTOs, and now I am a CTO. It's my first job as a CTO, but I've been like a chief architect and a whole lot of stuff like that as well along the way. So I'm going to try to unravel a little bit of some of the things that a CTO does. Keep in mind that there are so many definitions. I'm going to give you, one path through all that stuff. But let's start by looking at what kinds of companies there are. And I think there's only 3 in the world for an IT person. 3 types of companies. One is an enterprise where, like, it's a bank, right? They do something which is not IT, but they need IT along the way to help them, right? And so you work mostly on internal systems. They have other things, and they've got lots of external-facing technology as well, but mostly it is about their internal systems and driving their internal systems. Then there's consulting, which are people who help other people do their stuff. Is anyone here a consultant? Raise your hand. Anyone here in enterprise? Right, so a lot of you. And then there's product. So product companies, they sell technology. That's why they're there. They're there to sell technology. MYB is one of those. Atlassian is one of those. I kind of put product companies into 2 buckets. Those that people who their users are paying for the software, and the people who are not paying for the software. So like people like REA. So the users, the people who are buying houses, they don't pay for the use of that software, right? The advertisers pay. And same with people like the News Corp, etc. They build lots of products, but their users aren't paying. And it's a bit of a distinction. So I work in product. My career has gone in and out of product and consulting. And maybe it's a common story, right? So when you first get out of uni, you do consulting. Why? Because you want to see the world, you want to see things, and you want to experience lots of technology, and you're doing lots of different things, and you're realizing you're giving all this value to other people. You think, you know what? I want to create that value for myself. So you think, what do you need? I need a product company where I can build a product. So you go to a product company, and you work there for a while, and then it's the same old system with the same old technology, and you're fixing bugs, and you're getting bored, and you think, you know what? I need some diversity. I need different projects. I need different languages. I need consulting. And so you go to consulting, and then that wave continues. I probably did that for about 8 years, I reckon. Anyone else here done that? Yeah, many people. It's fun. But I have found my love, and it's definitely in building product. So who can tell me what are some of the senior titles of IT people in an organization? CTO is one. What else is there? CIO is another. What else is there? Oh, there's only 2 kinds of people, country and Western. Any other roles? COO is not technical, operational. CIO what? CISO, strategy or security? Security, yep. Digital, yeah, looks after maybe the online, the website side of the business. Absolutely. There's one more really important one. Senior role. That's the only important role. Let's put it from a developer, I say that. The other one is VP of Engineering. Now, that's not a word we use in Australia that much, but it's the word we use in Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, every product company has a CTO and a VP of Engineering. So let's kind of unravel a little bit in this one particular context I'm talking about, what these different roles are. And I chose smiley faces, and I put a little smile on it based on how much I would like that job. So CTO is technical strategy and face of the business from a technical point of view, right? And VP of Engineering, it's sometimes called the head of development or engineering manager in this country, is the person who actually runs the engineering team. They're responsible for building the thing that you build. They're responsible for managing the people and working out their salaries and paying them and hiring them and firing them. And they're responsible for tracking budgets, right? They're given a budget and they've got to work out how much they're going to spend and how much is going to be on this, how much is going to be on that, and their training costs and all that kind of stuff, and they have to work within that budget. And then there's a CIO, which typically is the person who works on the internal systems, right? So you have in your company a CRM, and you have a wireless network, and when someone new comes to the company, you've got to give them a laptop and a telephone, and they've got to get them on the wireless networks. That's the internal, that's the CIO role. So that's kind of the typical. I'm saying typical because when I canvassed around the place, I found all sorts of different things, right? So at car sales, the CTO is actually the VP of Engineering, and I think the VP of Engineering, oh, actually, no, the VP of Engineering is actually the CTO under this definition. Seek don't have a CTO, but they've got two CTOs who kind of, and neither of them call the CTO, but together they call themselves a CTO. All right, that's fine. Like I said, it's very varied kind of definitions. REA, the head of the engineering group, is the CIO, and the CTO reports to the CIO. For most of my career as a CTO, I've reported to the CEO, right? So actually, you know, now it's getting complicated, right? Because now it's organizational structures. So let's pare that back a little bit. Let's start from the beginning. This is the nice simple model, right? You're at anyone here in a startup? Who's in one? 2 startups, 3 startups, 4 startups. Lovely. Startups are great, right? Because when you're the senior technical person at a startup, you control everything. It's not the simple model. This is the glory model, right? You've got the dictator. You can do whatever you want. Okay, you got to mess around with the wireless networks and worry about phones and blah, blah. You don't give people phones in a startup. But you've got to manage all the internal systems, but you've got full control of everyone and everything, and that's a lovely model. Actually, it's not the glory model, it's damn hard work, right? So I've been that person on a number of occasions now, and that's really challenging because you've got to do everything, and you can't just focus on that one thing that you love to do. And it's probably an overarching message of my whole talk here today is there are many things that the CTO does, and very few of them are technology. Let's ramp this up one more level. So, in a bigger company, there is an engineering group. Sometimes there are many engineering groups, and there's an executive group, right? Now, the CTO with that C in front means that they sit on the executive, right? That's the most senior set of people in an organization. Now, the CTO is a bridging person between these two groups. In some companies, the CTO can be completely embedded in engineering and report to the engineering manager or some other manager in that group, or the CTO can be completely embedded in the executive, and they swing depending on the company and depending on the situation. I am in the middle there somewhere or other, right? So now, though, you can see that the CTO has a role here, liaising with the VP of Engineering, you know, not getting too much in their business, right? Because they've got to deliver, right? But also, you're the face of engineering to the executive. Right? The executives, they run the company, they've got important things to do and important things to deliver, and you've got to tell them what's going on, right? But you don't do what's going on. You only help what's going on, right? So that's an interesting situation to be in as a CTO. And then if we just keep going up, there's actually more stuff, right? There is that word that all developers hate. It's called, and everyone has to use the double quotes, the business, right? Everyone show me double quotes. Right, the business, right? Because you always say that because everyone hates the business because we're all the business, but that's bullshit. There is a business, right? No matter how many decades we say this, it's still there, it does exist. And the CTO actually bridges. So who actually is the business, right? When you build a product, build it and they will not come. Build it and sell it and market it and push it and blog about it and go to conferences about it, and maybe some people will buy it, right? And so the business are the people who are actually are KPI'd. They're measured on how much of the business they're growing and how much they're selling the products that you're making, right? They're looking for a value, financial value for money exchange with a customer. I'm going to give you a lot of great value, and you'll give me some money back, and we're going to grow our business, and you're going to get some value, and you're going to grow your business, right? And so the CTO really sits in between those three, because the business want to know, what's engineering doing? The VP of engineering is too busy, or she is too busy working on the managing people and hiring and firing and all that kind of stuff, right? And the executive have to liaise with the business, because the executive have all the objectives of the entire company to manage, right? And so they're talking to the business saying, hey, you guys sell this, and they're saying, and right, so but actually it's more complicated, because there is sometimes a product team, right? These are the people who decide what features go in. Are they the business? No. Well, in some companies they are. In some companies they're embedded in the business side of things. In some companies, and mostly where I've worked in Silicon Valley, they're a part of marketing department. The marketing department, they understand the customer. So they decide what features go in. In some places, it's inside engineering. At MYOB, product is inside of engineering, all right? But obviously you have to work very closely with the business, because they want to know. I mean, the salespeople, they're out at the coalface. They're talking to customers. They know what's going on. They know what to sell, and they know what their customers want. So the CTO plays a pivotal role there between product, because product also wants to know what engineering is doing. What are engineering doing? What are the engineers doing? I'll tell you what they're doing. They're gold plating in their ivory tower, right? They just sit there and they want to get all the semicolons in the right spot, right? And it has to be all clean code. What's this bullshit clean code they keep talking about? And everything they do creates technical debt, which they've got to keep working on. Stop creating it in the first place as the business. So the CTO gets rolled out to explain to the product and to business what technical debt is, right? But the bigger thing here is the clients. When I went first to Silicon Valley, I had a mentor, this guy I worked for. I worked for him for 3 companies, and Raj, an amazing guy, knew everything about technology. He said to me, this is one big lesson: Simon, if you want to build great product, know your customer, right? So everyone in the business, and I don't mean the business, I mean the business, needs to understand the customer. And the CTO, they're going to be liaising with engineering and the executive and the business without a context of what your customer wants, useless, right? So I go visit customers all the time. I'm on the phone with customers all the time. I go out with salespeople and ride along. It's called a ride along, where you go and once you're at the coalface with a customer and they're paying for your software and they're giving you feedback, it's an amazing different story. You feel so connected to your product in a completely different way. But I wish that was the end of it. There's still a big gap there on the what's in the hole. The press, right? It's the outside world. They want to know what's happening in the company. And they want to know what's happening from a business point of view, in which case they ask your CEO. But if you're a technology company and your product is software, they want to know what your technology does and how the technology is doing. So once a week, I'll speak to a journalist. All right? And that required me to actually go through media training. There are these companies that just do media training. It's very intimidating. They put you in front of these cameras, put the bright lights on you, and they ask you a question, and they go, no, no, and until you get drummed in, right? Because the press, they just try to trap you. They want you to say something twisted and weird that they can put as a headline. And let me tell you, as a computer geek, it's very easy to say that, right? Luckily, we're all off the record here, right? Yeah, okay. So there's just a little bit of some of the complexities of the environment that a CTO finds themselves, right? So far, we haven't spoken at all about actual technology, right? What's the T for then? Some might ask. Okay, so when great, you're doing all that stuff, you're talking to people, and you're liaising. Like, what's your KPI? How do you get measured? And I didn't have an answer for that one, so maybe we'll just move on. So each executive at MYB has what they call their strategy house, the things that they do and the things that they work on. This is my strategy house. I have left out all the details, right? But I'll show it to you later if you want to see it. But behind each of these boxes, I've got like 4 to 6 bullet points. So I come up with this. These are the things that are important to me as CTO, and all my initiatives and all the things that I work on fall under these pillars here in the strategy house. So at the top of it there is security and risk. I sit on the MYB Security Council, and I make sure that every single new thing we do gets a design review, gets an architecture review, gets penetration tests tests done to it, and we keep track of a schedule, and we use internal and external people for this. We rotate vendors, and every single security report that gets done on any product we put out goes directly to me from the vendor, right? And the team, but it comes to me first, right? And so I just need to make sure that everything's going out, and because when you've got hundreds and hundreds of developers, and we've got 350 plus people who work on our products, every little piece of data counts, and some of it counts more than others. And trying to track what we do and what's important and what kind of security measures and standards you've got to apply, especially to financial data, it's really important. So it's like at the top of my house. Then I do PR, which is the press stuff. Talent, which is about helping grow the talent within the company and bringing in new talent. And we're always hiring. Since I've been at the company, we started with 600 people. We're now 1,200 people, so we've doubled in size in 6 years. Innovation is a big pillar of a job of a CTO. Kind of the CTO kind of represents what's coming and what's new, and I put that as one of my main pillars, is looking after that future vision. When you're trying to talk about what your company is going to do and why you're going to buy it as a customer and why you as an employee a potential employee want to come on board, it's about the vision. It's about your forward-thinking vision. And for example, we had an executive offsite a couple of months ago, where we looked at a 10-year strategy for the company. And my role at the offsite was to present what I think were going to be the big disruptive technologies that were going to potentially impact us or our customers over the next 10 years. And I put together a list of 17, which I presented to the executive and the board, right? So that's the kind of stuff you kind of look at. Strategy is about how we build our technology, and operational stuff as well there. Besides that, there are kind of these meta initiatives that I have as well. And so I've got these 4. Agile was my first one, like bringing Agile to the company, and then microservices, and then the current 2 I'm working on are platforms, which I'm going to talk about more later, and being a more data-centric. Like we collect a lot of data, but we're not using it to its full extent to make our customers' lives easier. So these are kind of things that kind of sit overarching, and they can fall into any of the buckets of my pillars, actually, of my strategy house. So these are the things that I use to form all the things that I will do on a day-to-day basis. So let's have a look at what the essential skills of a CTO are based on all that kind of stuff, right? So one is deeply technical. Why? Because if you need to speak to engineering. You need to influence engineering. My role is to make sure that we're being innovative and that we're building things the right way and we're doing technology in all the right way. And for that to happen, I need to have the respect of all the engineers, right? And so, depth and breadth is kind of what you've got to have, right? I don't code on a day-to-day basis at work. I do a lot of prototyping, but, I wouldn't necessarily get near a production code base, right? And I've been in and out of my career all the time in terms of that. That said, I'm currently on a project and I'm producing production code. Business savvy. You are speaking to executives. Who here enjoys speaking about to executives? Not many people, right? Yeah, so ask me at the question time and I'll tell you about some of my tips on how to talk to an executive. But you're talking to the business, you're talking to executives, you're talking to the board, right? There's the board on that. The board are guiding what the company's doing, and I'll go to a corporate event and there'll be some board members there. Yeah, they'll straddle on up and say, "Hey, Simon," and they're looking for an inroad. They're looking for a back channel into what into what the gold platers are doing, right? They want to make sure that they're not gold plating. So, I often interact with board members and the executives and other people, et cetera, et cetera. But also, I think the number one is you got to have some inspiration. You got to be able to set a vision and bring people along that journey. You are an influencing role as a CTO, right? No one reports to me in the business, right? So I have no direct reports. So all I can do is influence. And that means, bringing people along on the journey and painting vision for people. So I tried to sum it up a couple of weeks ago, thinking about this thing. How do I sum it up? I asked the people today in the speakers room, how would you sum up the CTO role? And the answer was Nightmare Moon, which is a little pony in the corner. For those in the know, you'll know why. But here's what I came up with in the end. It's about steering the company to the medium-term view. Everyone is working on a day-to-day basis for the here and now, right? We've got the business, they're putting a lot of pressure on product team and pressure on engineering, and there are numbers to meet, and there are KPIs, and everyone's working for the now. And all the developers have had drummed into them from their boss, no, don't do that. We've got to deliver this week, otherwise the customers won't buy this. And there's always a lot of pressure now. And a lot of what I do is across all those pillars of the house is about bringing that long-term view. And I specifically chose the word medium term here. It was long and it's medium term. You can say long because, it's a piece of string, but it's months and years. Maybe 6 months to 2 years is kind of the time frame that I try to get people to think about and to think on. Okay, so let me switch gears now and talk a little bit about some of the technology aspects of this. So there's a few things I do to try to influence technology and change technology, and let me just kind of walk you through what's some of the things I do here in this regard. So firstly, the days of building product in a garage. You and your mate, you go into a garage and you spend 2 years and you tap. You speak to no one, the doors are locked, all you eat is pizza and Red Bull, and you come out and you go, da-na, and there's your product, right? And guess what? Everyone buys it because it's great, right? The classic example is internet banking. When the banks produced that stuff in 95, 96, right, early days, it was a 12-step process to transfer money with spinners, right, waiting for that. You'd select, you'd log in, you'd select the account, hit submit, you'd wait, then you'd choose the account you wanted to get it from, you'd submit, you wait. The next screen, you'd enter the amount, and this went on for 12 screens, and everyone did it. Why? Because the alternative was to get in a train or your car and drive into the city and park your car, pay the $20, walk in, wait in the queue for a teller, and spend 5 minutes there at that teller for a total of a 3-hour trip, right? The bar was very low. You were innovating new industry, so anyone could do this, right? By the way, who are these guys? Hewlett and Packard. This is in Silicon Valley in the 50s. But today it's a little bit more complicated. Today it's a bit more of an evolutionary process. This is kind of an evolutionary graph. You can imagine this thing as the space of all possible products, and the high peaks are the great products, right? And so you might start at one of those little X's down the bottom. And how do all developers want to work today? We want to work agile, right? Which means no forward thinking. We just hack and slash for the moment, and we get steered by whatever new technology, JavaScript framework comes along, right? Which is what evolution did as well, right? So if you were one of those X's, you would start slowly hill climbing around, that thing until you climbed your peak. And the problem is, what happens? You get to a local maxima, which is a global minima, right? And so you get to the good product probably up there, but really you wanted to get to the great product. And it's a part of the CTO's role to think about how do we explore more of that space simultaneously. And I think the greatest thing we've got right now is the lean startup kind of concept and lean product management and lean engineering, where you do hypothesis testing, because every single hypothesis starts you at a different point on this graph, right? So you might just be on that big one. You may not be, right? You could be on the little one. What's the little one? Yeah, a pivot. Yeah, probably. Bankrupt, maybe. So also you can jump these poles. Different technologies come along. Different techniques come along. Agile allows you to be, jumping between these things, but, giving the team the vision of where they are and what's possible, and making sure everyone's kind of keeping loose so that you can be exploring multiple peaks at one time and not putting all your eggs in one basket. It might be the wrong one, is a part of that long-term, medium-term kind of thinking that I was talking about, right? And so then you look at what skills are needed by an engineering team. And I'm talking about everyone in engineering. Here's what I reckon. This is what you need, right? And so it's the CTO's role to help sort this all out. So technical capability, you've got to be able to execute, and domain knowledge, you've got to know what you're building, right? But if you don't have great execution at the bottom, then see my little T at the top there? You're going to run out of time, because you're going to be crap at executing and delivery, and you're never going to finish this product, right? Likewise, if you have great execution and great domain knowledge, but no technical capability, what happens? You build crap and your quality suffers, right? Still, once again, no one buys your product. And if you've got great execution, great technical capability, but you don't know what you're building, then it'll have no utility and no one's going to buy it, right? So many of the initiatives that I that I take on at work are about trying to raise these three things in the whole product team. You know, training and hack days and innovation sessions and prototyping new technologies and agile introduction and lean and all that kind of stuff. You know, those are the kinds of things that on a medium-term foundation really do have an impact. So let's talk about architecture for a second. Here is a system. And this is how I think about systems, and this is how I try to talk to teams about what they're building and how they're building it, right? So you're in your ivory tower, you've got a whole bunch of gold paint ready to go, and you start from somewhere, all right? Now, it's time to move to the next step. Where do you go? Which direction do you take your system? Well, you've got a few choices. You can go any one of those. Which one should you choose? What's the answer? Well, where are you going, right? If you're going here, then you should probably choose one of those three, right? Because they're roughly in the right direction. There's no straight path from A to B. You can't start with the finish. We know that in engineering. You can't, otherwise you're over-engineering and you get it wrong. Because you know what, in 3 months' time, that finish point will actually change and you'll be on a different trajectory, right? So you should pick something that's roughly on the path to where you're going. If you're not doing that, you are taking the company if you take one of the other arrows, you could be taking the company in the complete opposite direction that it needs to go. Every day, every single developer, I reckon, makes about 100 decisions that affect the future of the company. Every line of code you write has assumptions built into it about where you're going to be in the future. And you go, oh yeah, that'll be right. Oh yeah, I can create those files. We can create 1 million files in a file directory. We can do, you know, whatever it is. So if you don't understand where you're going, then you can't kind of tic-tac your way towards that end goal. And so being responsible as a developer and being responsible as a product person and being responsible as a QA is really understanding where you are going and defining that vision. And that's part of the technical strategy that, you know, probably also is a part of, not probably necessarily the CTO's goal is to do it, but to enable it and to encourage it and to help it bloom, right? You've got hundreds of developers. You can't just be there telling them what to do. It's not going to work, right? You want an organization that can do it on its own. The other thing I'll talk about is leverage. When you build things, it's hard, it's expensive, to test them takes a long time, and once you've got them, it'd be nice if you could reuse them, right? Reuse is hard, and no one's got the magic formula for it. You know, if you take a library and you put it through all your different modules, if you change the library, what happens? Well, if everyone's got their own copy, then everyone's using a different version, so you haven't got reuse. And if you're all using a shared microservice, then if you want to update that microservice and you've got 20 people using it, also hard, right? You can't sit in your ivory tower as a CTO and say, here's what you should be doing on reuse, right? But over time, you can start to create some ways to work which create leverage. And here's what I think it is, right? Firstly, when you've got business logic and you've worked on that business logic and you've got data, maybe it's invoices and how to process them, that's a great asset, right? That is something that the company could one day use. Your vision is to use it inside an accounting system, right? But it could be used anywhere. You might want to take that capability and use it somewhere else, and you could create a standalone product or a mobile something or, you know, an iPhone app, whatever, just with that piece. If it's a part of a bigger system, then you can't necessarily do it. So if you think about it as a standalone asset, right? Now, what happens is you take that asset and you add an API to it, and now you've got a capability. The capability is something that's usable, right? The asset was just sitting there. It's the logic, and it's the data. But now with an API, you can start to use it in many places. And when you add an experience onto that, some form of user experience, and you can create many different experiences on that same capability, you start to create products. And products are useful. They can create you products and revenue streams in all sorts of different ways. And when you think this way, you enable the business to really start to piece together their assets and put them together in different ways. If you just build monoliths, and this is probably the formula that gets you away from a monolith, right? If you just build monoliths, really your stuff is locked away. And a great example was when we first got to the cloud and started doing hackathons, there was very little we could actually hack on because all of our data was actually locked away in these databases which were, you know, behind 9 levels of firewall and no one could get to them, right? But slowly, as we started building APIs around our stuff, suddenly our hackathons just exploded because there was so much fodder available, technical fodder available for people to hack with that it was chalk and cheese. It was a really amazing eye-opener. All right, let me switch gears now and tell you a little bit about a story and the history of MYB. And another aspect of software engineering, well, not software engineering, but the CTO role that's probably outside of software engineering. So back in 1991, this company was founded, right? And the vision was to take that big ERP software that all the big companies had access to and give it to the little guy. Give it to the small business, the 1, the 2, 3-man shop. And it worked a treat. And for 20 years, this company just skyrocketed. Everything was up and to the right, going beautifully. 1.2 million customers, MYB is a household name, all good. And in the 2000s, this thing came along called, you might have heard of it, it's called Internet. I think they've got a new name for it now. It's all a bit fluffy. But this Internet came along, and we looked at it and we said, you know what? We surveyed our customers, and the customers said, no, we don't want that stuff. And all the advice was, stick to your core business, right? All the new fandangled stuff, it's going to come, it's going to go, right? So a disruption hit. Has anyone here experienced a disruption? Well, not many. Let's do a disruption experiment. Everyone, please, right now, stand up and change seats. There are only 3 responses to a disruption like that. You can ignore it, you can resist it, or you can embrace it. And I saw all 3. This guy over there, looking very smug, did not move. I ain't doing this stupid game. Nuh-uh, not me. I'm not going to handle this disruption. Yeah. This guy over here just jumped up and actually moved right, 5 levels of seats. Right. He wanted a big disruption. Craig was a little bit slow to move. I think he's just like, do I have to? Really? Fine. I'm at the front row. Everyone's going to see me. Okay, fine. I'll do it. Right? So everyone treats this differently, and it's not easy, right? And it's like it puts you out of your comfort zone. Have you ever moved a seat before? And like, that's your seat. Can everyone feel the warmth of the person there sitting? Yeah. Ooh, that's kind of weird. It's uncomfortable disruption. Anyway, MYB embraced that change, and we set ourselves a new mission to get to the cloud and become an online company and completely transform. However, we have to kind of understand where we really were, right? This was our website at the time in 2010. Look at the lovely PowerPoint clip art included here, right? There's a binder, there's a beach ball, the word DVD, the word download, and this is just a symptom of the whole business, right? We were a business that produced desktop software in a box once a year. If the tax department started to change tax tables, we're like, woohoo, 2 releases a year, right? Every single process in the business was geared for that kind of gate, right? And that is slow, and you would not believe. So we surveyed the whole organization. We said, do you think we should move to the cloud? 98% of people said, absolutely, it's a good strategy. And in the same survey, 78% of employees said, this move to the cloud will not impact my job. So we had a big challenge ahead of us, right? And we got through the challenge. We've now got a cool hipster website. We've got products in the cloud. We've got great ladies on she's a real customer. But the change was really hard. And I've been through change before and lots of more smaller changes. But one thing I've learned from the executive, and the executive at MYB are amazing change agents. And that's, and it actually is a big part of all executives that when you're going through a change of a company to really, to get on board with that. And the CTO really has to embrace change and represent that change to the technical side. Right? People are asking all the time, so what does this mean for my job? What's going to happen? What does this mean for technology? Right? So, I was at the center of that move. And you've got to manage it. Look, even small companies, right? If you're hiring new people and you've got 5 people in your company, you're hiring a new person, you're adding another 20% of your capacity to your business. That's a big change. They're going to be changing culturally. Have you got a company that can absorb people culturally? This actually chart is how we actually describe the change to people in the business, right? Our business model starts, this is a double sigmoidal, our business model starts, it goes up, it peaks and it goes off, right? And then if you want to switch business models, you kind of, you're going to have to jump them with the red line. And that white spot in the middle, that's going to be pain. That's going to hurt, right? That's a tough time there, right? And we described how we want the company to be. And we painted the picture. We all worked together, the executive and the whole business, to kind of talk about what does it mean for MYB now to be a cloud company? What are we going to look like? How are we going to behave differently? We came up with values and cultural norms and this whole thing. And going from a yearly release, to a weekly release and to daily releases now, it's chalk and cheese. And it was a really tough time. Not helped by the fact that the blue line never went down. So we've got 2 products now doing extremely well. When I look in hindsight at what we went through over those, it's probably a 3-year journey that we went through. When I look in hindsight, if I write the manifesto for that hindsight, this is what it would have been. Heterogeneous over homogeneous. In 2010, we were a .NET shop. Right? And if you're a product company, you've got a single technology, you can only think in that technology. And if you can only think in that technology, you will never be able to bring in new ideas, because you can only do what the company who makes that technology kind of says to you to do. Right? So for example, we had very little automated testing. So we started some Ruby products. We brought in a whole Ruby team. And what do Ruby guys do? They're obsessed with testing, right? And so, it just completely changed the culture of the company, the Ruby guys. And, I strongly believe that, a diversity of technology and choosing it responsibly when to take on new technology just keeps everyone, on that curve of the ability to change and absorb things when they happen, because things will happen. You will get technical disruptions. Angular will go out, and you'll have to switch to React, and then you can realize that Angular 2 has a translator. That will just happen. We had a lot of external development done. External development. We had teams in overseas doing a lot of our development. So we brought most of that in-house. That was a big transition of the company. We used to be date-driven. We had one date. We had our one release. That was the big date that everyone worked towards, right? And dates don't work. You want an outcome for your customer. And so we moved the whole company to an outcome-driven approach to doing things. And it used to be a very top-down thing, because when you have only one release, who gets to put their feature in? Well, everyone fights for it. And everyone battles for it. And because everyone battles, it just has to go higher and higher up the chain until the CEO has to almost make all the decisions about what goes in the product for that one moment. That doesn't work. That doesn't work in an agile company. It doesn't work in a modern cloud company, right? You have to distribute that. So you have to give teams autonomy. And giving teams autonomy is a beautiful thing to watch as it happens. You lose control. And the weird one is platform capability. So we had all these products, but once we were in the cloud, all our customers were starting to cross-product. For example, an accountant works with a small business owner. The accountant's got their software, which we make for them, and the business owner's got their software, which we make for them. But those two are now in the cloud. They can now talk and they can now meet in the cloud, and it started forcing us into a whole way of platform thinking. And you saw on my Meta initiatives, I've got platform there now, because that, I think, is the next big one for us, is bringing that all together. And we're in the middle of a platform journey. But I'm getting close to my last slide here. How do you take 350 gold platers on a journey to build a single platform? Because they're broken into maybe 25, 30 teams that are all doing their own thing. They've all got autonomy. They've all got their own KPIs that have got to go. And so we looked at this question a few months ago, and I brought together a lot of the technical leaders in a bunch of these groups, maybe 6 of them, and we met for 2 hours every 4 days to try and work out what are we going to do. And we came up with this idea to come up with the 10 Commandments. Right? Thou shalt use platform services. Thou shalt build platforms. Thou shalt not build a service that already exists. And and it was and we looked at it and go, yeah, nah. We went back to the drawing board. We thought, you know what? Some of these things, you can't make a hard and fast rule on it. Some of these things are actually, horses for courses, and it's a bit of this or a bit of that. You got to make the right decision. So we then thought, hey, the Agile Manifesto. Let's try that. And so for a few of the items, we said, oh, no, you want to choose this over that in an agile style thing. And that felt a little bit better. And we thought, no, but if we do that, we're going to need standards. And so we thought, we'll write all these standards documents. And I was talking to some other CTOs about this stuff, and everyone's going, we're all in the same situation. What do you do and how do you do it? And I described these standards we're going to build and these committees that we were going to have. And then I said, and everyone's giving me all these frowns like, Simon, you idiot. What are you serious? You're going to do the standards? Never works. Because they said to me, all you'll get, and we've tried it, all you'll get is people who are really good at making exceptions to get around the standards. Right? And engineers are great at that. And everything is an exception in technology, right? But then they really liked the manifesto stuff. So we went back to the drawing board and we turned the whole thing into a manifesto. And so a couple of months ago, we launched internally our platform manifesto. And here it is. We come up with this, with these bunch of people in the company. We had a couple of revisions. And now every single team has this on their agile wall. It's very much to the times. I think the Agile Manifesto probably, lasted for a decade. It'll probably last for a few more. This may not last for that long. This is very much a sign of the times of where we're at with our journey, right? So let me pick out a few. There's my favorite one, top left, right? Medium-term decisions over the short term, over short-term thinking, right? That's me pushing the CTO agenda. I want everyone to think, I'm going to make an asset. I'm going to make a capability here. How can people maybe in the future share it? Don't have to share it right now, but if you knew that they might be, and it was a great thing to do that, how would you engineer things differently without, going too far in terms of waste? Top right there, nurturing the platform over feature delivery. The more you hammer in features, the more your technology and your platform degrades. Right? You have to keep your house in order. You have to maintain a technical debt. But sometimes you've just got to make the right decision on when to do it. This is a guide to enable people to make those right decisions. And each of our teams, like the QAs and the UXs and the designers and the ops guys and the developers, they all take from this, they all interpret this in their own style. Some of the developers actually make T-shirts out of some of these things now. It's really interesting. So the big one was, the controversial one was asynchronous. We want more asynchronous. Right? In the old days, there was a lot of synchronous calls and users would be waiting and systems would be waiting. And especially at MYB, where we were accounting software, everything had a transaction wrapped around it, right? So everything was done in lockstep, and you wait for it all to be done, because if that thing doesn't, you submit the money, and then you run a report and doesn't have it in, right? And we are slowly letting that go so that your reports are eventually consistent, which is really, the banks are 3 days behind, so, we can't beat that. Stable over the unproven. Interesting one, right? We don't want people to choose only one technology or one stack, because then we'll become a homogeneous environment again, right? But if everyone chose something different every day, then we'd have 1,000 things and it would be out of control. So the right thing to do is at the right time, the team should be deciding when to step out on a limb, when to experiment, and how much to experiment based on, how important that feature is, how big it's going to be, how much reuse you can get out of it, those kind of things, and how valuable that new stack might be, right? For example, we've got a team now stepping out and trying Elixir, right? We need some, we think we've got some stuff that might, need to scale in a particular way that they think Elixir might be suited for. So we picked a small thing and we're going for it that way, not like converting the whole company to Elixir overnight. And lastly, the greater good over individual objectives. And that's my favorite one. Right? Because at the end of the day, there's going to be conflict, and there's all the pressure of all those different groups, what's the right thing? We want everyone to be thinking. And so here is just a tool that is something that a CTO, a way a CTO can help drive and manage technology over, hundreds and hundreds of people doing software engineering. All right. Thank you very much.
Got a little bit of time for questions if anyone's got a question for Simon.
Just on the greater good over individual objectives. So in a performance objective world, like acting on the greater good is in itself an objective. So how do you deal with the person who goes, I did all these things for the greater good, so I've met my objective, versus is it the right mindset that they're taking into that?
There is conflict in all these things, right? And you can interpret these however you like. Right? And if you want to interpret them as a developer badly, you absolutely can, and you can use any of these to justify the means to do anything you want. Totally can. I think people do tend towards the greater good, and I think when you get a team together, and it's not just individuals, it's a team, and creating a team is a cultural thing, I think they tend towards making those right decisions. When there's a lot of pressure on them, it's hard, right? This is actually a tool, so when a business person comes and says, oh, we need this right now, they go, just hang on a second, we're trying to do this, and this gives them context to have a conversation, right, about what's important for the company right now. I don't think this is going to last, right, because, there's things here that I think are, nurture the platform over feature delivery. We don't have a platform right now, so I think it's really important that we err on the side of the platform rather than get features in, right? If a feature is going to kill the platform, it's no point. We need to really, but that'll change at one point when the platform is stable in a couple of years' time. I think it's going to change, right? It'll, you know, there'll be some other one that'll, you know, balance it out.
You mentioned hackathons as a platform for innovation and disruption. Wanting to know your thoughts about 20% time. Have you tried it? Is it working? Do you prefer one over the other?
Yeah, we looked at 20% time, not 30%. You've got a generous company. What we do is we used to do hackathons like in an office, like the whole office would do it. And we did a couple of those. They were kind of fun because you get everyone rallying behind it. It turns out that the teams really just, you know, they actually now schedule it themselves about once a quarter. A team will decide on a Friday. You know, some of them do it every 2 weeks on a Friday. They'll do like 2 hours, or they'll do it once a quarter. They'll spend the whole day on Friday, and they'll do a whole day. And they've got a whole list of things that they keep on a whiteboard of all the things that they want to kind of try and do for hackathons. It's great. And so they kind of self-select. Some of them don't like doing it, and we're fine with that. And some of them are really antsy and want to do it more, and we're fine with that as well, right? So I think you've got to, in a world where you're trying to promote autonomy, and you can't be giving autonomy in one hand and smacking control with the other, right? So the challenge is how do you manage, right?
Has it been difficult to balance making sure that you take the company in the right direction and also balancing people and making sure that you make decisions that are obviously going to affect people's work, their careers and everything like that? Has it been difficult to transition from, you know, being a senior developer or something like that to a CTO?
So I think, yeah, that's an interesting question. So MYB is very people-centric. In fact, we only report 4 things to our board. 4 metrics of which, you know, the company's going. It's revenue, it's number of users compared to what we think as the collective competitor landscape, customer satisfaction, and employee engagement. How much the employees like being at work. And so with those 4 initiatives, we track them and we've got metrics against it that we must meet every quarter. And that forces us down the road of initiatives all the time. We have a whole team of people who just work on trying to raise engagement, to try to make it a great place to work so that people want to come to work each day. And so they, you know, we've got all these things going on. And we just won an award for our training program. Last year we won the BRW's most innovative Australian large business. We bring external speakers in. We've got a rewards program that's made up. It was decided by the staff how you get rewarded when you perform well, when you meet your KPIs. Some people get a mentor from an executive. None of it's financial, right? The feedback was we don't want financial. We want things that will help us grow. So some people get to have lunch with the CEO every quarter as a part of their choice of what they want to take home. So we just do a lot of work on focusing on people to make sure it's a great place to work. And during the transition, it was a tough time. And we've also just moved offices recently, and that's another tough thing to do, to take 200 people and move them 30 kilometers away from their existing work. It's those kinds of things that are challenging. But when you create an organization that people love to work at, it makes it a lot easier. But it'll always be a challenge. It's probably one of my biggest learnings is about cultural and change management. And like I said earlier, the executive, I've learned a lot from them at MYOB. They're really good at bringing people on the journey. And you've really got to focus on bringing people on the journey. Yeah?
Simon, you said you'll share some of your, tips for communicating with the executive.
Ah, shit, I thought you'd forget that. Okay. You mean one of these guys? One of these guys, you mean? Here we have the executive in his natural habitat. All right. There are 3 things you got to know, all right, about executives. Do not talk tech. Don't go up and them say, oh, I've got a great idea for a new API. We're going to get integration on the platform and the server and the Lambda. And don't bother. Right? If you're going to be talking to executives, you have to talk in real-time stories. I had a funny experience. When I first met the board, it's a group of 4 people on the MYB public board, now that we've become a public company last year. And I went to this meeting, and I couldn't believe it. Everyone's talking about what we should do and the strategy of the company and the 3-year, the 5-year, and they're talking about what we should be doing. And me as an engineer, I think of something and then I abstract it. And then I abstract that and I think of the complete meta thing that it could do, and it comes out as a complete weird engineering meta thing. And the board members, they talk in the most simplest terms. Examples like, imagine I'm coming to your house Tim, CEO, to cut your lawn. And I come and I mow the lawn and I walk around in its hot sun and they tell these excruciatingly slow stories like that, right? But they're amazingly powerful. They make it absolutely real. And from that trickles down, meta layer platform integration down at the engineering level. So talk in those terms. Talk in real, simple terms. That's the first one. Second one is executive porn. What is executive porn? What do executives love more than anything else? Buzzwords. They love? No, they don't. They do. No, they don't.
Profits.
No, they don't. They actually love a plan. Don't go to them with what you're doing right now. Go to them with the process of what you're doing and how, if it works or it doesn't work, what's going to happen. All right? They don't know what you're doing. They don't care what you're doing. All they care about is you've thought through what you're doing and what you're going to do under various situations. So you come to them and you say, we're working on this new technology. It's going to do this. Now, we've got 3 hypotheses. One is it's going to do this. One is going to do that. If it doesn't do that, we're going to switch and we're going to do this, right? So we've got a backup plan. But we believe that 30% of you talk about how you've thought through all the things that could happen. And they go, ooh, that girl, she's thought about what she's doing. She knows her stuff. I trust her. And all that buzzword stuff she's saying must be okay then.
So you don't have to tell the truth then?
Good luck to you. And the last thing I want to say is you must avoid what I call executive expression fixation. It's a real term. Don't come to an executive and drop an expression bomb. Just be careful, right? So you don't walk into the executive room and go, I was talking to the teams, and man, a couple of guys are really dysfunctional on that team, but really, they're making some progress. You just said, that team is dysfunctional. That team is dysfunctional. That team is... And the executive will run around going, dysfunctional team, that's all they'll pick up. And they'll fixate on this expression, and they'll go to the engineering managers, and they'll go to the CEO, and they'll be crazy. So just choose your words, and don't be crazy and choose... I suffered from that quite a bit when I first started. I think I've learned to tone it down a little bit. All right. Yeah?
You've got some more info on that Venn diagram where you're talking about domain knowledge and other things and the outcomes of that.
No. Everything I had, I put down the slide. But come and talk to me, and I'll show you the slide again if you want. We can talk through it.
There's an image with the house, I think, house diagram.
Oh, you wanted to see that?
Dot points or something.
Oh, shit, okay. I thought you'd not ask me. So this is mine. Don't take a photo. Don't post this. This is my, seriously, this is the one that I share and that I use with my boss, right? So these are some of the things that I work on, some of the initiatives and the KPIs and the goals that I want to achieve across what I do. Net. And I'm happy to show you. Come speak to me and I'll show it to you.
I think I'd like to hear from a CTO perspective how you go from, and I suspect the manifesto stuff is part of it, but how you can overcome the challenges of going from the vision of we're going to the cloud or we're going to do DevOps or whatever to the actual execution, which is very reliant on the culture and the personnel you've got. Right?
Well, that's another talk. I reckon if you should ask Dave, they'll challenge me on that one. It's another talk. Honestly, I don't have a good answer for that. I think right now it's magic, and I think there's a lot of failure. There's a lot of failure in our industry, and it's because the answer to that question requires unicorns and ponies. And we're in the middle of, we've just done a big new product strategy, and we've been wanting to do a tech strategy to match it, and now we're actually thinking about, okay, what's the tech strategy, and what's the platform play? And so I'm actually in the middle of that right now, of working through that, and I don't have a good answer for you. And the manifesto's formed a little part of that, but there's a lot more to it, and maybe in a couple of months when it's solidified, I'll see if I can get another talk in.
Sounds like a YOW night.
Sounds like a YOW night. There you go. Yes.
Assuming you've convinced some of us that we might want to be a CTO, how do you actually get that job? It's not like they really advertise that.
Show of hands, anyone now want to be a CTO? Oh, we've doubled the number. Oh, we've got a maybe over here. I don't know, Chris. I don't know. I don't know. There's not many of them out there. I think the best way to do it is start your own company and be the CTO of your own company. That's the best thing you can do. And then work your way from there. All right. Thank you very much.